it's kind of awesome.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, February 4th, 2019, and this is a regular Moscow City Council meeting. Brandy?
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brandy. I will move on to item number 1, which is the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda from January 22nd.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Catherine and a second by Gina to approve the consent agenda as is. I'll start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
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 Okay. 5-0. We will move on to the next thing, which is staff recognition report. Jen, do we have anything this evening?
We do not have any staff recognitions for this evening.
Okay, item number 3, mayor's appointments. I have none this evening. So we will move right into item number 4, which is public comment and mayor's response period. We limit this to 15 minutes at a time, and so if you have something on your mind, as long as it's not in front of the Board of Adjustment and or Planning and Zoning or on this evening's agenda, please come up, state your name, and let us know what's on your mind. Seeing nobody rush the podium, I will move on to the next item, which is item number 5, public hearing, Idaho Community Development Block Grant, status of grant funded. Projected activities for fire truck acquisition. Lisa Anderson is with us this evening. Good evening. Lisa, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you tonight, I will do the presentation and then we'll move forward with the public hearing, and I'll be giving you an update with some photos of the construction of a fire pumper engine. And just to note, this is the second one that the City of Moscow is purchasing, and I was just told by the mayor that he saw Fire Chief tonight and he anticipates that this may arrive in April. I hadn't heard that. I was had anticipated June, so we'll move forward with this. Each week, well, it's been every 2 weeks or so since December, we've been getting a little bit of an update on the fire engine from the manufacturer. So just to let the public know, on April 16th of 2018, we received a block grant for $268,000, which was approximately half of what the purchase price was to purchase the new engine. And on April 26th, we moved forward submitting a payment to Hughes Fire Equipment in the amount of $534,472. And in order to receive the discount of $28,413, you pay for everything up front, and that allows them to move forward with the manufacturing process as quickly as possible. And I think this one is going much quicker because it's identical to the first engine that we purchased. And so we received these updates, and I left the wording that the manufacturer gave us right in these descriptions. So I passed out a PowerPoint to the audience, so I'm going to just kind of move through these since we don't have a lot of people from the public here and the council has access to this, and move forward to the PowerPoints. And on the left, the first picture here is the beginning fabrication of the pump house. And then on the right side, it's actually the cab, the beginning fabrication of the cab. A lot of welding going on there. And then on the second page, we have the fire pump, which is the main apparatus where all the water goes through that. And then on the right-hand side, we have the nameplate for the fire pump, which has the important information on it, right? And Zach told me this might happen. There we go. Okay. In January, we received another update, and things started to move forward with the fabrication and the cab and those different things. So I have some additional pictures here for you. You can see there's quite a bit of movement on the cab, lots of welding again, and then also the backs, I'm forgetting my words now, the pump house structure. So they've sent us other pictures also, including on that side, and I want to make sure I get my wording right on this, so I'm going to jump to my notes here. The fire pump is actually beginning to receive the valves and the plumbing. And then there was continued fabrication on the body of the unit. And these pictures are actually coming from Pierce Fire in Florida. We moved further along this next period. January 19th, we got a report, and they continued to work on the actual housing of the cab, and then the chassis arrived. And I think the last two sets are the best. We actually start to see more fabrication. We've got, and I see my slides got mixed up in here. I apologize. January 19th was before January 12th, and it shouldn't have been that way. I apologize. That's why it wasn't making sense to me. So they started hooking more valves onto the pump itself, and then the bed fabrication continued. And now we see they're starting to paint the actual front part of the fire engine, and then they've hooked the pumping station to the chassis part of the fire engine. And so it continues to come together here. I can't imagine how much hours of welding that they have on this, so lots of steel and aluminum. The last set of pictures that we got, this is where you can really see it coming together. It's the red and white here, where the cab is being built. And then the pump and all of the valves are being connected onto the chassis, and they're starting to build the back part of the engine. And so, I've looked at this 100 times and did not see that my slides were out of order, so I apologize. Of course, when you proof it yourself, you never catch that. And so, as I said, we're anticipating that it will arrive, I guess, in April, from what Brian said.
Well, I talked to Chief Nickerson today, and the reason for this is going much, much smoother than the one that we received last year, because this fire truck is exactly like the one we got last summer, last June. And so all the plans and everything was pretty well ironed out, where we didn't have to make several trips down there and go constantly back
Right.
and forth with different requirements for this truck. So that's one of the reasons, because I was kind of taken back. I thought it was going to be like a June or July thing, and
I did too.
so I was kind of excited about that. Questions for Lisa before I open the public hearing from councilors? Thank you, Lisa.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I will officially open the public hearing at 7:07 and ask for any type of a response from the audience. If they would like to come up and comment about this. This is such a good deal, I can't imagine anybody, I mean, you should have firefighters doing some cartwheels in here or something, I would think. Seeing nobody rush up to the podium, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And we need to have this hearing, of course, because of the block grant status. And as Elisa rightfully said, we talked about this last spring when we got the thing going and sent in our application for this. So this is a very exciting thing. This is $289,000 of this fire truck, well over half of the expense. So that's a big deal for us as a city. So with that, I'll open it up to the council.
I have a question.
Okay.
I remember after touring the truck on the day that we opened it up, and they were talking about how they put the tools in and how they figured everything out. So then that means that the design that they had exactly fit for the next one. They didn't have any changes.
Nope, that's exactly correct.
Wow,
It was
that's
just-
really
It's an
cool.
identical twin, just 1 year newer, which is,
Amazing.
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool, because they were talking about all the things they put in place, and that's really cool.
Well, and to
All
your
the
point,
tools.
Catherine, the first one that was built, there was a lot of conversation going back and forth about that very thing, about being able to get equipment in, respirator, the respirators and all the different stuff that firefighters use to make sure they had their appropriate space and so on and so forth. And so it worked well, so they didn't have to go through that again. So
Yeah,
it made it
that's-
pretty easy, really.
Yeah.
So, this is
It's
pretty good.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
really good. I was
exactly.
really, it was just really so thoughtful, so that's what I thought was great, so.
Well, I would move we accept the verbal and written information that we got tonight.
Second.
Okay. We've got a motion by Art and a second by Ann to accept the verbal and written comments and questions at the public hearing. I'll start the roll with Catherine.
Aye.
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 Okay, we will move forward. Thank you very much, Elisa. Now, one of the things I'll say, and I'm very, very excited about things like this for our volunteer fire department, because we're kind of the envy a lot of this state. I have mayors from all over the state comment about our volunteer fire department, how we manage to do things. And one of the reasons we have a great volunteer fire department is keeping good, safe equipment, updated equipment that our firefighters can use, both the men and women, and I'm very proud of that. And they take pride in that, and that's a big deal for us here in our city, so that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, well, even during the Super Bowl, do you remember that commercial toward the end for the first responders? Did you see that? And so we were with some people that didn't know that our fire department is volunteer, and so we had a large discussion about that, and they were so impressed because they didn't know, and then they like, you can volunteer, so it was a whole big conversation about, yes, you can be part of this. It was really good.
Okay, well, we'll move on to item number 6, Moscow Farmers Market Commission for recommendation. Amanda Argona is here to present.
We've got the blind leading the blind here, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Good evening, Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just had an eye appointment. They told me I didn't need glasses, but I'm beginning to think otherwise.
Well, I have the same issue, so there you have it, so.
All right, so I'll be giving the end of season report for the 2018 Farmers Market season. This was presented to the Public Works and Finance Committee on January 28th. And then we'll lead into the discussion from the Farmers Market Commission on their fee recommendations and other projects that they're working on. So 2018 at a glance, Daniel Stewart officially left this position in early July, and I came on full-time. So we had some transition of market management. This was the first year that we implemented the revised fee structure that had been discussed about in 2017. Also, the new vendor handbook was implemented for the first time. We had 2 new market resolutions. One was the dog, pets, and other animals, and then the nicotine resolution, which I believe includes vaping as well as tobacco chewing and cigarette smoking. So our market's a nicotine-free market. For our programming report, we had 152 children participate with our AmeriCorps member facilitating programming with Safe Routes to School. Janine Eslick ended her service term in mid-September, and our new AmeriCorps member, Davey Frogley, is currently working on programming for 2019. We continued our partnership to the right-hand side, University of Idaho, College of Ag and Life Sciences. It's a brief overview of what they provided for market programming this year. About 26 paid musicians. That application just closed for the 2019 season. Chefs at the Market demonstrations, we had slated 6 for 2018. We only were able to implement 4, but we had about 100 people participate in watching those demonstrations. We continued our partnership with the University of Idaho Chess Club to offer chess at the market with the life-size chess pieces in addition to smaller tabletop pieces. And then once that resolution regarding the sidewalks being both sets of sidewalks, east and western sidewalk being open to dogs, we redirected just under 300 dogs between June and October. And then we had 4 defecation incidents during that time frame. Sales reporting and vendor count. With the implementation of the new vendor handbook, which we also had new vendor definitions. And so our ag vendors are a little bit, I think, more representative of what we've had in the past. So 125 vendor roster count, and we'll go into some, to compare this to some historic counts and data points. And then aggregated sales were actually closer to 2016 numbers than they were in 2017. So there's that historic data vendor as far as vendor counts go. So we're really honing in and sharpening up those vendor definitions. And then our historic sales reporting. And so we're sitting closer to the 2016 mark than 2017. Financial assistance programs, we're a little bit ahead of the game in regards to getting numbers reported. We don't currently have any numbers for the Women, Infant, and Children's Program, also known as WIC, or the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. They're still getting their tallies together. But we have a really good distribution and redemption rate at the market right now when it comes to our SNAP EBT transactions that are happening. And again, that's a historic look at the financial assistance programs. So 2018 market costs and revenue. This is actually what, after looking back, what we budgeted for 2018 and what was actually spent. Programming came down quite a bit, and so did staffing. So market costs were pretty on par. And you can see the vendor percentage, the contribution from the vendor fees was at 42%, and the city percentage was at 58%, so it's a little bit higher than what we initially estimated. And here's that historic data for the market costs and revenue. Again, being mindful of the fact that 2013 to 2016 were estimates when the market was still under the umbrella of the arts department. So we're moving into the Farmers Market Commission, and our commission's a pretty active one. So we have a couple of open projects that we're hoping to get some deadlines on, but we're looking at reviewing the craft and food jury process and maybe revamping it. Downtown business survey is currently in process. We have a tentative schedule set for farm site visits and hoping to actually have all of our farmers officially visited by this year. Rapid market assessment and market economic impact. We had 3 rapid market assessments done this past season. If my memory serves me correctly, it was July, August, and September, with the September one being just a customer count. So that report is forthcoming, I believe, in March. And then the handbook revisions and updates, those recommendations for the 2019 season are forthcoming to administrative committee and then council respectively. So one of the major things that the commission worked on right as the market ended was looking at a fee proposal for 2019, and they came to the conclusion that they would like to see a no fee increase for the 2019 season. This was primarily driven by the fact that they felt like with all the changes that happened in 2018, that they'd like to give the vendors another opportunity or another season to get used to those structural changes. And then we're hoping to get them back on track with the strategic planning. And so that we have a few slides just to kind of give some visuals and jog council's memory as far as what that implementation looked like and where we're at with the strategic plan. So this was the official fee structure that was implemented in 2018. So we went to the tier structure, and this was straight out of the handbook. So you can kind of see all the different amenities and spaces. And this is actually what it looks like on the ground if you're just looking at one 11 by 15 space for the different tiered vendors. And that's how much they would actually pay based on the days. Then you'd have to add in the registration fee. So the strategic plan was developed before I came on, but major challenge area 3 was inequitable and inefficient allocation and distribution of market costs. And so we're really actually doing quite well as far as actions and strategies and where we're at in the strategic plan. And basically, we would like to get back on track with our measurements and deliverables, specifically towards the bottom, developing that multi-year plan and approach to fee recommendations. We had slated July 2017 for that, and our plan and our goal is to have that be July 2019 of this year to have a multi-year plan. We're looking at about a 5-year projection. And with that, I'll take any questions that the councilor or mayor may have.
Amanda, one of the things, and this was previous to your time about being in charge of this, but one of the things that we ran into is we really didn't know what the sales of vendors were a number of years ago. We knew that on Saturdays it was very, very busy down there, and it was a huge thing for our city. But we really didn't know, nobody really knew what was going on in terms of dollars and cents. And that's really where this fee thing originally came from, because questions from previous counselors about how do we know it's fair and equitable, so on and so forth. So I'm glad that we're doing what we're doing. So it makes total sense to me, and so this is pretty nice to see. Questions for Amanda? Catherine?
Yeah, back earlier in the slides, you had the staff costs at like 90,000. I just wondered how many staff?
Yeah, so we can back up right here. So that includes myself, or the community events manager position. That includes part of Assistant City Supervisor Jen Piffner's time. I believe we also moved the AmeriCorps member up into staffing, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have a market day laborer. I hate using that term.
That would also include half of our administrative assistance time that assists both arts and community events.
Yeah, DJ Scaloran, who is now an administrative specialist.
And then just to follow up, so that means that all the park staff and like Zach for IT, they're through another line item.
My apologies, that includes Zach's times as well. Our park staff is not included in there. We've done an analysis of what that looks like, how much time is spent at the market as compared to other activities on the weekend. We have those figures, but we do not include them in staffing costs.
Oh, okay.
It's not a very big impact, but we have those.
Okay.
Other questions?
And did you
Brandy?
say that the operating costs in 2018 are lower than they had been previously? Or-
So if you compare 2018 costs to the historic, it is lower. It's about 10 grand lower, if my math isn't mistaken.
Do you have any kind of theories about why that is?
I think it could be programming, and then the staffing. I mean, I'm not an arts director. I'm a community events manager.
If I may, this is one of the significant activities that we saw when we restructured both arts and community events, with our arts program manager now and our community events manager not having an arts director and half of an arts director time. Actually, I think we were counting more arts director time in this before because those budgets were commingled and market took up so much of arts time that was how we captured it appropriately to show the true cost of the market. With the shift, our budgets are completely separate. It is much easier to tell the differences now. You see a lot of ease up there where we estimated those costs for the market. But it's significantly within the staffing line item.
And Brandy, in addition to that, that's exactly why we wanted to break this out from the arts to a community event director or manager. Okay, other comments for?
Oh, I'll have one other question.
Okay.
So the number of dog redirections, do you know how that compared to the year prior, or did we not really have that information?
I didn't have that data available.
Okay.
Seems pretty on par from my time when I was an AmeriCorps member.
So I know you said it, but could you say it again for my memory as to when we're looking at having a fee resolution generated?
So the goal would be for staff to direct and work with the commission on sort of getting a fee proposal on the books to before, I believe, and Jen, you feel free to jump in if I'm not using the correct language, but before we set the budget for 2020, so that way our fee is kind of in line and on par with what we're looking at for the market budget. And so we kind of have a better idea of what that vendor contribution could look like when we're talking about the city general fund offsetting so much and the vendor fees offsetting so much.
So somewhere around summer.
Syncing it with the fee resolution process that we have through the summer and the budget process. So you'd see that in the actual fee resolution with other fees.
And that also gives an opportunity for the vendors to realize what's going to happen.
Correct.
Okay. Would somebody like to entertain a motion on this proposed action?
Well, I'll do it.
Okay.
So I think we should just receive the report and accept the recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Brandy to receive the report and accept the fee recommendations. We'll start with Ann.
Aye.
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 I just have a question before I vote. Does that mean we're accepting that there's gonna be a fee? It sounded like will you want to clarify the motion? Because I don't want to necessarily say that we've agreed to increase the fee.
The motion was to receive the report and accept the fee recommendations in the body of the report.
Which was no fee.
No
Right.
fee recommendation, or no fee increase for the
The
2019 season.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you, aye.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Amanda. Well, that is the end of our agenda, but we do have reports from counselors. So I'll start with you, Brandy.
I'm going to be very brief.
Are we all?
Because all I have to report on is AIC, that many of us attended and had quite the adventure getting both there and back from Boise with the weather situation at our airport, which will be significantly improved in the next time around. And the only thing that has happened since the last council meeting was planning and zoning, and Gina filled in for me, which, thank you, Gina, so she can report on that.
Okay, we'll move to Gina then.
Okay. I no longer am jealous that I didn't get to go. Y'all had to travel over hill and dale to get there. So I got to sit in on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I was amazed. They get a lot of work done in the short amount of time that they meet. I was very impressed. I took 4 pages of notes. They went over all of their comprehensive plan edits. They went through all the sections. They held a public comment or public hearing for it. There were, by this point, and it was very clear to see in the audience that night, that the audience had been brought along the entire time. There's a lot of really good communication from this group. So by the time we got to the public comment, people were comfortable and happy, and it sailed through quite well, went unanimously through the group. They will bring it to us soon, and I don't have a date on when they're going to bring it. Even the 2 people that did have some impact or input into the public hearing part of it were both very positive and said that they'd done a good job. So that is a surprisingly great commission. I also went to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and it was kind of fun because there's a little overlap between the Tree Commission and the Parks and Rec, and so I kind of knew already what they were going to talk about as far as the edible forest park. But they went through all of the programs and how popular both Breakfast with Santa and the Super Bowl Bash was. And they had already filled up their rosters for both Breakfast with Santa and the Super Bowl Bash. I bet that was more fun than the Super Bowl at my house because there were, things other than the game going on. And I will go to the Tree Commission tomorrow. So that's all I have.
Okay, Catherine.
Hi. So I was down at AIC, and I made appointments with 6 representatives and senators in the education committees and met with them while we were there. And it was very productive, and went to the education committee meeting, and I asked my principal to go with me, so he and I went in together. And then I spoke on, as a city council member too, and just talked about that per dollar expenditure, the largest portion of that dollar goes to the school district, and said that if you would consider funding then we could use that money for city services. So, anyway, it was very a productive day and very interesting.
Okay, Art?
Yeah, I was down at the AIC too and got educated and otherwise impressed by what goes on down at our Capitol. Not much coming up. The Arts Commission meets next week, and I would emphasize that this Thursday, the URA will be meeting and receiving testimony on the 3 potential plans for the 6th and Jackson lot. And so we'll be getting a lot of information on that. And so everybody who's interested should show up for that one. It's going to be a longer than usual meeting for sure. And there's going to be a lot of stuff talked about. So that's all I've got.
All right. Ann?
Nothing to report.
Well, I've got a couple of things. Now, one of the things that was very exciting for me is the Association of Idaho Cities. We had 5 councilors. Gina was the only lone wolf here that stayed to watch the city for us. The rest of us were all down in Boise running around with the legislators and having a very, very nice time. And Jim Bolin, our council president, ran the last council meeting on January 22nd, in lieu of my absence, because I was down in Boise because of board meetings that I had early with AIC board and representing District 2. But I got to share with you, you know, our city was very, very well represented, and it was very, I really feel proud of all these guys up here. I'm using that generically, men and women, because we were probably the most visible city in the state, and that included Boise there as far as counselors and the mayor being there. Some of our sister cities and stuff from throughout the state maybe had the mayor and one other person, or just the mayor themselves, and sometimes not even the mayor, just a counselor. And so we got a chance to talk with our legislators, not only our legislators, but what Catherine said. We had other people like Carl Crabtree from the Grangeville area, and we were able to mix up with other legislators. I know that Ann did as well as I myself and others. And so our city was very well represented in that meeting down there. And I got to say something about January 26th, because we had coffee with the legislators here at the chamber. All 3 of them were here, and I got to tell you, it's the first time since I've been the mayor of the city in 6 years that we had all 3 together, not only in Boise, but down here so we could talk about issues. And that's a big deal for us. You need to put that in the paper too, Garrett, because these guys it's fun getting a chance to work with folks that are serious about what's going on for the betterment of our area in northern Idaho. That's a big deal for us. With that, I'll move on to, we had a MAC, my Mayor's Youth Advisory Council meeting on January 28th. That was very, very good. We had more kids there and had a couple of, it was kind of fun because we had a lot of activities going. We had Tyler Palmer presenting what community development does for streets and so on and so forth. And kids ask a lot of questions about different things, and so that's good for these kids to be involved and know, why can't all the streets be fixed at once? Well, there's certain budgets, restrictions, and different things where money flows into certain pots for specific reasons, and how we have to manage that through strategic planning. And so it's very fun. I'm having a great time with these kids, and we're making some steps forward. Also had down at AIC, and I missed saying this, on the 25th, there was a water summit that I went to, and I purposely wanted to go to this. And this is kind of a neat thing, because we had mostly southeastern Idaho people there because of the water beautification down there. And we're going through a water beautification in our area, but also the impact of a bunch of cities got together, 13 of them, about getting their water rights fixed and being able to recharge their aquifers, and signing off each city with so many acre feet of doing this. And there's been $29 million spent on this down there. They're putting $4 million in it this year. And the person from the Idaho Department of Water Resources was there, and of course I got a chance to ask all kinds of questions, which was great, because I wanted to know that money is available for us up north here too, and they realize that we've got issues there. So the point that I was making is that with PBAC and things we know what we need to do. We just need to move forward with this solution, and we can get some state help on this. And I'm going to be kind of pushy at our next water summit here in the fall about, hey, this is where we need to go. Availability is there, we need to be able to get on the checklist so that we can solve our future problems, because it takes time to do this. Like I said, there was 13 cities in southeastern Idaho that got on board with this, which is very interesting. So that was the whole idea about me going to that water summit, because I was the only person, and really, there was not very many people, one person from Coeur d'Alene, one person from Sandpoint, and so it was very important. Yeah, well, the thing of it is water is a big deal for all of us throughout the state. It's been a big deal here in Moscow. We've talked about it long enough. Now we need to move with the solutions and move forward and get it done. As simple as that.
So, Bill, did they talk about the company Suez and the private companies taking over from municipalities? Did that come up at all at the Water Summit?
No, that did not come up at all. And then the other thing I have to report is I had an airport board meeting January 30th, and Tony Bean, one of the things he said, well, I gotta admit, though, the day we came back, I'm sitting in the Boise airport with Art, and Art says, when you travel with me, it's problematic. And he was correct, because we were stuck in Seattle. Yep.
He said that to me on the way down.
Yeah,
and it was
well,
true then, too.
and so there you have it. So Art was consistent in what he said, so there you have it, folks. But we made it back.
Or
And
fly with me, this is more.
so there you have it. But interestingly, Tony Bean said, oh my God, I couldn't get, and in this board meeting, I couldn't get half the counselors out of here to go to the Boise for ASA. And I said, yeah, you couldn't get half of them in plus me at the end of the meeting either. So we had a little bit of fun with it, but it is what it is. And that's why we need an instrument landing system in that airport. And once we get that, and thank God the government shutdown is over with for time being. And I told Tony Bean, I said, get that money for that instrument landing system now before we do something else goofy in DC so that we can get it done, because we got to get that in before we pave. That's the catch, and it just throws everything in helter-skelter for us. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we've got that going for us. That's all I have to report. Jen, do you have anything?
Just a couple of quick announcements. We have the monthly breakfast meeting on Wednesday at Wallace Complex. And then our February 19th city council meeting will be on Tuesday due to the President's Day holiday on Monday. So just one day forward on the 19th.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Be entertained.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? We're closed at 7:36, everybody. Thank you very much. Excellent.